What is going on, everybody, and welcome to episode 98 of Bettin N Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Roscoe, and a exciting yet little bit convoluted show, I guess, a little bit for you guys today, as we are going to cover Del Mar Saturday, which includes the Grade 1 Del Mar Debutante for the girls, going 7 furlongs on closing weekend at Del Mar. Again, been a fantastic meet, and hoping to close it out with a bang. But not only that, we're also going to cover NFL Week 1 and kind of our look aheads, as we all have separate teams we're looking forward to for this year. Maybe talk a little bit division, and then talk as our, what games we're looking forward to most in terms of a betting standpoint towards this weekend. And also at the end of the show, as always, we're going to have the great Jim Miller on from Hawthorne Racecourse to talk about the races coming up this week at Hawthorne tomorrow, Thursday, September 5th. I'm already thinking towards Breeders' Cup, apparently, but hopefully this will be a great show for you guys. If you guys are new here, or you find yourself coming back on the regular and you aren't subscribed, why not? You're already coming back anyway. Please go down below the video player here on YouTube and hit the subscribe button and hit the like button. Not only does it show us that you guys are really enjoying the content that we're putting out, but also it pushes this podcast and others on the channel into the YouTube algorithm to hopefully bring like-minded horse players like yourself to the HHH Racing Podcast. Also, if you're on X watching either Howard's or my show on X, please hit the follow button. Like I said, we continue to post all throughout the week and post our picks whenever we play. So please follow us over on X if you're watching there. Either mine at AP Roscoe K, as you see on the handle, or Howard at H Kravitz. So we'll continue to go through these guys. You guys know the drill. Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern are our show times, but also now on Thursday for Picks and Ponies, which is tomorrow's show. Since the start of the NFL season is tomorrow, Thursday, September 5th, from the posting of this video on September 4th, the boys are going to move earlier. They're going to go 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to hopefully get you guys out and watching Thursday Night Football tomorrow, as, again, the NFL season kicks off, which we are all excited for. So again, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, new time for Picks and Ponies for the NFL season. But also, guys, as you guys know, not every single episode, as we post here on the HHH Racing Podcast Network, is also available in audio form: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. For those, if you're more of an audio listener, or you're in the car going to the gym, if you want to listen to us in audio form, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor is the places to do so. Please go rate, review, and subscribe over there. You have a small window to get your Del Mar Power Picks as well for this closing weekend, which includes Grade 1s galore. I believe there's 2 Grade 1s, the Del Mar Debutante, and then tomorrow's, I'll have to ask Noah what the exact Grade 1 is tomorrow, but again, it's basically the boys' version of this exact race. Fantastic closing weekend. And if you want, go to hhhracingpodcast.com. You'll see banners on the top screen. Power Picks tip sheet right in the middle. It'll take you to the Del Mar Power Picks. And if you're already a normal Power Pick subscriber, you get a discount on the weekend, of course. But patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast for those quote unquote normal Power Picks, only $4 a weekend, $15.99 a month as billed by Patreon. And you get 2 tracks every single Saturday: spot plays, price plays, pick 5 grids, everything you need to be successful on any given Saturday. Here at the HHH Racing Podcast, we got you covered. Again, patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast for that. Guys, let's move right into it. As you see, I got my Bears gear on, repping Roma Dunze, one of our new rookies, as we'll continue to talk about later in the show. But guys, I'll bring on my co-hosts. We got 2 of them tonight, and we'll go through these races at Del Mar. And before I bring them on real quick, I want to point out that these PPs literally came out 2 hours ago, if not an hour ago, actually. So this is a very quick handicap on our part. I will preface it with that. So we will go through the races with you guys, as we're only talking 3 races tonight. We'll go in a little more in depth, pace scenario wise. Obviously, Noah, our resident West Coast bias, he will have the scoop on all these horses throughout the entire meet. As you guys know, on the Del Mar Power Picks, it's every single week. Noah's got something really good going, whether it's a 15-1, 10-1 underneath, 20-1, 30-1. He's always got something going. He knows these horses like the back of his hand, so he'll be here to talk about a lot of these horses he's seen run throughout the meet, obviously, as we've quick capped a lot of these races. So let's bring him on real quick, and then we'll get right into the show. From the East Coast, a little bit of a hiatus, but he's back now. New York Giants favorite, Patrick Kunsel, and from West Coast, again, West Coast bias himself, Noah Maher. Boys, what's going on? Should be a fun show tonight.
Yeah, episode 98. That's pretty crazy.
98. Wow. Hey, we don't have to hear a specific person yap all night, so that'll be nice.
None of this from one guy that's not here. Of course, everyone knows who that is, the aforementioned Charlie Freeman. But yeah, I mean, 98, guys. It's actually insane. We're already at 98. Last January in 2023, we started this. And again, nothing's in the work. Everything's in the works. Nothing is confirmed yet, but we are going to have a special episode for episode 100, which, funny enough, is the week after I get married. So this will be a very fun couple of weeks here. Episode 99, the Wednesday before, and the Wednesday after for episode 100 after I get married on the 14th of September. So this is gonna be a fun couple of weeks. Let's just say that. And then after that, I got honeymoon, and then we're going to Keeneland. So it's a pretty good couple weeks stretch here, guys. But we'll get right into it. Looking at the chat, of course, Katie is here, always ready. Thursday show is 7:30 now. See, Katie's on it. I already got that. The Gallop Out, which is, of course, Ryan Anderson and his podcast. Ryan, thanks so much for joining the show, man, as he was on our podcast last week for the Pacific Classic Day. Did an absolute fantastic job. So thanks for joining, Ryan. Greatly appreciate it. Marco Lewis here. Felipe is here. Need hit exotics to drive exotics. Info is top notch. Felipe, I know you're from the West Coast. Thanks a lot for tuning in, man. Greatly appreciate it. Keith Borger says you guys are the best. Saratoga tip sheet was great and finished with a bang. Chancellor McPatrick with the double and pick 3 was an absolute great way to finish. Yeah. Paul Halloran, Howard, Paul did the pick sheet, the power picks. Howard and Paul did the morning show. Absolutely crushed it. So if you guys followed along, at least on closing day, it was absolutely a great showing by them. So congrats to everyone who cashed there. Matt Miller, of course, is here. What's up, everyone? And Gallop Out. Ryan says Noah nailed the cold 3-2 exact on Sunday at Del Mar, as we talked about, as he was on Frank Scottoni's Sure Bet on Sunday. If you guys didn't see that, Frank Scottoni invited him on, and he even gave a winning pick on for his Sure Bet. So that looks pretty good, at least for the podcast. So appreciate that, Noah. Thanks a lot. Gary Rice from X. If you guys don't know, on X as well, you guys can comment in the live chat along with everybody else. Gary, thanks so much for joining the show, man. Greatly appreciate it. Paul Conlon is here. Paul, I want to see that face second weekend at Keeneland, man. I want to see it. Thanks so much, man, for joining the show. Greatly appreciate it. Guys, let's get right into it here. Like I said, we're only covering 3 races. It is going to be the stakes on Saturday, since this card, again, literally came out an hour ago. We're going to cover the Del Mar Debutante, which is the Grade 1 for fillies and mares, the Del Mar Handicap, which is race 5, and the race 9, which is the Mabee Stakes, a Grade 2, which features 2 very, very talented fillies and mares running, or filly or mares running on the going long on the turf, guys. So these are 3 very, very good races we're going to talk about here, and we're going to go pretty in depth with you guys on these. I will bring up the Equibase, so we'll take a look at the field. Obviously, guys, just with these cards coming out, we do not have morning lines for this card. Also, we do not have when I show the DRF form, we do not have numbers on the side of the screen. We will do our best to voice those numbers to you as we go around talking these horses, but also the numbers will flash on the bottom of the screen, of course, who we are talking about. But the first field is a field of 7 for the Grade 1 Del Mar Debutante. It's going 7 furlongs for fillies 2 years old. And as I bring up the Equibase right now, the morning line favorite will be the number 2 Noonie, which I thought was really interesting that she's Florida bred. I actually didn't know that until I saw this card for Baffert and Hernandez, coming off of a really good race last time in the Best Pal Stakes, if I'm not mistaken. The Florida bred out west. Number 4, Vodka with a Twist, is most likely your second morning line choice. Mike Smith and D'Amato. Third choice, I'm going to probably guess, being the number 6, Tenma, which is the other Baffert the other Baffert for Kimura taking the mount. And I'll switch to the picks right now. And 2 of us are going with Noonie. She's going to be pretty hard to beat, but there is one man which you'll probably have to listen to here, as he has some very strong opinions. I think the horse is also very interesting. I have her in second. And for those of you that don't believe, I had her before. Noah gave the picks literally 10 minutes ago to me, but the number 7, man, Jack's Magic Girl, going to be a price. Last ran on the turf, Noah, but a bet that you feel very, very strongly in. And I'll show the time form first, because one, that shows us the pace scenario of the race, but also it shows us the numbers next to the names. So what'd you like most about the number 7, Jack's Magic Girl?
Ladies and gentlemen, get your pens and papers out, because this is my play of the meet. The number 7, Jack's Magic Girl. Like you said, Kyle, ran on turf last time. We'll cover the 5th race, but she had the option to either go to this spot for $300,000 or the Juvenile Fillies turf race, which is the next race, for $100,000. The trainer and owners opt to go here for more money. She is completely bred, top to bottom, dirt. She's good magic, out of a Medaglia d'Oro mare by Stargirl. In that last race, she's the 7, which is funny enough. She's the 7 in this race too. Yep. She got a pretty good trip overall. They went 22-4 for the first quarter, and they actually went above 48. So they really slowed it down in terms of things up front. She got a pretty good trip, I would say. But if you fast forward to the top of the stretch, she is exploding, and the stride on her is just amazing. The 5 was the one that was kind of pressing the 1, but still going pretty slow, and she just basically puts her away. And she's galloping through the stretch. Barrios pretty much just wraps her up, and she's still flying at this point. Gallops out well. Like I said, they probably ran her on turf for the first time to go 2 turns, because for 2-year-old fillies at Del Mar, the furthest they can go is 6. And she's bred to go a lot further than that. So that's probably why they debuted her on the turf. It's only a 57 buyer, but I believe that was a pretty slow race, and buyers not giving her enough credit. I believe that time form rating is somewhere in the 90s. So that's a big discrepancy. And then if you go to that race, Kyle, I'm sorry, I'm trying to make you click around.
You're good.
But if you go to the race itself and what the horses got for their buyers, there's only been a couple horses, and they ran like what was that, 7th and 9th. There were only 26 and 33, but they've already come back and improved both of their buyers by 18 and 20 points. So that race is much faster than it says on paper. Looks like she's going to get the setup. There's plenty of speed. You know she can handle the distance. You know she's going to be a fair price, because number 1, the buyer's super low, and number 2, she ran on turf last time. I love everything about this horse, and you know you're going to get a fair price. So, mic drop.
All right, Churchtown. We'll see how well the mic drop went last time on this show. Noah, the one question I have for you on this one, obviously the horse ran on turf last time, working fantastic on dirt. So I don't think I agree with you completely on the turf breeding. I have the dirt breeding, excuse me. I have this horse in second. The only question is, like you said, this horse is bred to go long. You know, Medaglia d'Oro mare, good magic. This horse has long written all over it. This cutback to 7 furlongs is the one thing that made me question a little bit of, maybe she just doesn't get there. And if Nooney gets a really good trip, which, the time form envisions that she does, is the 7 furlongs kind of hurt her in that regard? I obviously, you don't think so, but is that something you took into consideration when coming up with Jack's Magic Girl?
I guess maybe, yeah. I just know she wants to go a little bit longer in general, which I know that's gonna favor her over others. Nooney, we can go into Nooney, and I'll let you guys talk about Nooney. But she was one of those. It was her and I believe Getaway Car, who were the 2 Bafferts that got bought for a lot of money as yearlings, and are not bred very well. Obviously, I've run very well. Nooney's rattled off back-to-back victories. Last time was in the Sorrento. So obviously it's a Baffert, and you would expect them to not, have any problem with more distance. But just based off of the breeding, if you remove Baffert from this horse completely, she's not bred very well. So it's just a matter of whether Nooney's going to struggle with the distance, and some others that maybe we'll talk about. But I guess it is a legitimate point that maybe 7's too short. But that's really as far as they can go at this point in the meet.
Yeah, and it makes a total sense. And obviously, Matt said it. I wouldn't want to be Kyle or Patrick trying to convince us that the 2 is better now. Noah's sold him already on the 7. And like I said, I'm with him on the 7. Just my thing is that Patrick, we'll watch this race as well as the Sorrento, only a 4-horse field, but both Nooney and Vodka with a Twist are coming out of this race, and you'll see they both got pretty decent buyer figures. Vodka with a Twist and Nooney both increasing slightly from 2 and 3 points, which is why I like the 7 as well, coming second start of their careers, generally the best time to have a big buyer jump. And as Noah already pointed out, both those horses that ran basically dead last, both improved buyers by 20 points, which makes me think that buyer is a little bit lower than what it should be. But look, she went 6 last time, Patrick. My problem is here, and she's the one on the inside. She didn't get necessarily the best footing at the start. Still rockets to the front. You'll see the other Baffert here. Vodka with a Twist, I believe, is the number 4, if I'm not mistaken, which she is. She got very easy. She went 21 and 4. She's been asked the whole way, and maybe you can argue that, it's not the best group, but she's the standout buyer of the field. I see her getting an easy trip. And that's my problem with this one, is that if the 7 doesn't want to go 7, wants to go longer, and if Nooney's just going to get an easy trip, probably sitting off the horse to her inside, I'm just worried that it might just be too easy for Nooney.
Yeah, and I think this is a question I would propose to Noah regarding this race with Nooney is, Del Mar seems to be more speed favoring more times than not. If she does get some sort of, easy lead or gets to sit comfortable, like, you're going to find her very tough, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah. And she actually, at the time that they ran that Sorrento, it was probably like a 2 or 3 week stretch where nobody was making up any ground on the dirt. Yeah. And I actually liked Vodka with the Twist quite a bit in that race. And I like her a lot today, just because she made kind of a middle move. She was wide, and Nooney, not only did she not get away with murder, but it wasn't like she was super pressed on the lead. But she had the bias with her. But yeah, I guess we haven't really seen that stalking ability from Nooney. But that the one Proud Starlet is definitely Ascend, and Nooney's fast, so she'll probably just in a default kind of manner just probably end up sitting right off of her. It just depends on if any of the other horses who are outside end up showing speed that they haven't really shown before.
Yeah, and we all know Zidane's money, Noah. 1.8 million for this horse, as you said, is probably a little bit ridiculous. But Union Rags, out of unanimity. Geez, I cannot say that word. Or unanimity. That's the correct. There you go, Kyle. We got there in the end. Just ran an 85 for DeBona at Gulfstream Park, which obviously shows that this dam can produce runners. And wins, which has been a very surprising, very good first crop sire here. Nooney is the top earner, but Win and You're In won the Sharp Susan at Gulfstream Park by 4 3/4. There's a lot of others that have just been starting out. One at Belterra Park with a winner. Luis Ramirez had one that just lost by a neck with a 66 buyer. You see a lot of these, second, third efforts from a lot of these horses that I'm going to go through. But, Win and You're In, it's a very sharp sprinter. Obviously, Gulfstream's not the best at this time of year, but still winning by open lengths in with these types of buyers is definitely a one to look forward to. Win and You're In, Win-Win-Wins won to 30% of his starters so far. It's something at least to look at when looking at Nooney. And the fact that the other siblings with Nooney, Beastly Speed was winning at 1-turn miles at Gulfstream Park, as ran well going 7 at Gulfstream Park. So the distance, that's another kind of feather in the cap of Nooney, that other progeny by unanimity can run that 7 furlongs and 1-turn mile. So maybe she can get that. Obviously, it's going to be a test for her on Saturday, but it's more of a trip perspective for me on a lot of these, races where Del Mar has the tendency to play that way, and definitely did earlier in the meet. And if the one's a dead send from the inside, which it sure looks like it to me, and the others also agreed, she just might get the trip of all trips. And that's my only question with Nooney, and why I didn't go also with Jack's Magic Girl on top, as I think she's all very interesting as I have her in second. Vodka with a Twist, Noah, and then Patrick, you can touch on her. We all have, the same pretty much the same. Patrick, the last horse we'll talk about in this race is actually your second choice in this race. So not Night Beacon, excuse me. Tenma is the other Baffert, as I mentioned. But Noah, Vodka with a Twist, like you said, is someone you liked last time, and she ran great at Churchill. I mean, that main breaker, even though in a cold pace, was very, very good. And she's come out of races where a lot of winners have come out of as well. This last, she won the debutante at Churchill with So There She Was, who came back for Doug O'Neill on the West Coast to break her maiden by open lengths in a really good race where horses have come back to win as well. She's very talented. It almost just seems like every time she ends up losing, she runs into pretty good horses. And last time with Nooney, I'm just worried that it's kind of the same type of scenario for her in this one.
Yeah, well, like I said, I thought she was a little bit against it last time. Going into the race, I think there were only 4 or 5 horses entered for the race. Actually, I think there were 5, and then Wesley Ward had a filly that he ended up scratching for some reason. But it looked like they all kind of wanted the lead, and this was one where even though if you just look at her form on paper, it looks like she's kind of not really a need the lead type, but she prefers to be on the front end. She looked like one just visually based off of her races, and that's why I liked her, that she could show that stalking ability.
Yep.
She did show a little bit of it last time. It's not like she was really all that close to the pace, and she did make a little bit of a middle move, like I alluded to. She probably just has to show it again, maybe. I would like her a little bit more, but I believe I was looking at the overnight entries, and I don't remember if it was her or if it was somebody else that's like a supplemental entry, so they might not go to this spot. But I think you have to consider her just because she showed that ability last time. She's getting better with every start, and she's one that could probably, in a way, make her own trip.
I completely agree with you. The last horse we'll talk about, Pat, going to you is Tenma, and this is another one that kind of with Noah's, not necessarily with the closing kick we saw of Jack's Magic Girl. This is one that also showed that stalking ability last time. Didn't break the best, but still was able to find a way and close and win this one here in a time where Del Mar, might not have been the best when coming from the back.
Yeah, exactly. She did, break a little bit slower than usual, and was, 6-1 on the day, so not the typical taking the typical Baffert money, but I did think it was pretty impressive, picking up all the pieces. Now I get they were flying, so that that does kind of show that there was some bit of an issue there with some horses in there. But I think if this pace can heat up, why not? She's shown she could do it before. I wonder what type of price we're going to get on the third Baffert.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you'll probably get third choice here. I think if Vodka with a Twist does go, she's going to be second choice. Tenma ran a really good race, just didn't really have that punch. Also broke slow, though, during that day. That's why I kind of like Jack's Magic Girl. 1, who's going to be a much better price, and 2, looked a little bit better closing for home, at least visually to me, even though the buyer says completely different. But, guys, we'll keep moving on to race number 5 here, as we have 2 more races to cover pretty quick, or pretty in detail for you guys, which next one's the Juvenile Fillies Turf. I'm going 2-7-4. Noah's going 7-2-4. Patrick's going 2-6-4 in the Grade 1 Del Mar Debutante. For the next race we're going to cover is race number 5, guys, and that is again, as I said, the Del Mar Juvenile Fillies Turf. 100,000 going a mile on the turf, and this one, guys, this is a Juvenile Fillies race in September is what this is. It's a full field of 12. And I'm not guessing it. You guys be my guest to figure out who's going to be morning light favorite on the day. It's probably going to it's the 2. Probably Thought Process for Hector Barrios and D'Amato. The Super Speed is also very talented. Another weird braiding Louisiana bred for Juan Hernandez and John Sadler. That's probably another one that's going to take a pretty decent amount of money. And I'll switch over the picks right now. All of us are going with the aforementioned number 2, Thought Process, off that last race. She ran a very good race. No, I'll let you talk first again here. Madaket Stables, Phil D'Amato, one going away last time on the turf. Not too much, and has been working outstanding. I mean, there's not too much to say, and it's not the most creative pick by any means, but it looks very, very good off that last race.
Yeah, Kyle, you'll appreciate this one because I liked her quite a bit going into that last race. And I think she was like either 3-1 or 7-2 on the morning line. Just got absolutely hammered on the board, went off at 6-5 or even money and won like it, had a pretty good trip. And everybody that I listened to going into that weekend was pretty much all over her just because she debuted going on one turn sprint. I think it was opening weekend, and then they stretch her out to a mile on turf, which is what she's completely bred for. She's a 9 in this race, and she's sitting a pretty good trip. She didn't really face anybody that was really all of that in that race. The second place finisher was a horse for Doug O'Neill, I believe, who was stretching out for the first time, and one of those that he had brought over from Kentucky that was running those 4.5 and 5 furlong races. I guess those two were pretty distant from the rest of them, and she's a little goofy, stuck on the left lead change. But there's just a lot of raw talent there, and it looks like there's some pretty good things for her going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. There's not too much really to say. This is a very wide open race if you can throw out this horse in the number 2. Barrios jumps back aboard for D'Amato in this one, as Noah pointed out. Completely what she's bred for. This is much more what she wants to be. Back-to-back 15 after that race, came back and worked a minute and 2, 1 of 6 on the turf at Del Mar. Just looks to be firing on all cylinders here, and this is really the only logical step forward for thought process, hopefully leading into maybe a juvenile Fillies turf at Del Mar come November. There's a lot of other horses, I think, though, that are really interesting. You and Patrick both have the number 12 C runner for Tim Yakteen last time, and I'll show this replay too. But again, a lot of these horses are going to be, but a little goofy. She was tugging. She's the number 8 in this race here, going a mile. I just like that this one and the other thought process have gone this mile distance before. I feel like it's really tested. And this one started out at a mile too, which I think is even more of just, they know what this horse wants. They know what this horse wants to do. Yeah.
And starting off or debuting, going 2 turns at Del Mar on the turf is not something that is really a lot of trainers' niches. Yeah. Definitely not Tim Yakteen, but he's a very good trainer in his own right. And this is there's going to be quite a few horses coming out of this Jack's Magical race, so we'll find out if this is a live race or not. And this is obviously one of them. I'm sure you saw this, Pat, but this is a half sister to Johannes, who's a very good turfer on the West Coast. This is owned and bred by Kuyathi LLC, which is actually just a partnership with the broodmare Kuyathi. All of the horses that they own have been bred through Kuyathi, and you can see she didn't run great. Obviously, it was only a 49 buyer, but it looks like she's kind of starting to figure it out late. She's got a lot of potential breeding, and just the fact that they threw her in this spot tells me that they've got more expectations for her. The only knock I would say is the outside posts. If you're 9 to 12 going a mile on turf, it's not impossible, but it's very difficult to win. So that was probably really the only reason why I would put her below the 2 thought process.
You make me, again, you take the words out of my mouth. I completely agree with you. She was very goofy down the stretch, was on the left lead the whole time, galloped out very well. Shout out to Ryan, the boss, and the gallop out. Said C runners a half to a turf
smart
monster. Man. Yep, it's very astute. We only have astute people on this podcast, Noah. But right. Look, if she figures it out, you can't say you'd be surprised if this horse went and win this race. Being who she is out of Gun. I thought Gunrunner was also a very interesting, being that, Gunrunners might not be the best turf sire, especially right now, only winning 10% in turf routes. But obviously the dam makes a ton of sense. The progeny, that last race showed she has talent. She just has to put it together. So the 12 makes a ton of sense, but the post position, Noah, was why I ultimately left her out, but obviously can definitely win in this race. Super Speed is another one, Patrick, we both have in third. I want to talk about the only thing that I don't like about Super Speed in this race, which I didn't have her third, is they have her on the lead, but they have it designated as a pretty fast pace. The number 1, Madonna of Loretto, was not on the lead last time, but they went very fast at 5 furlongs. So you'd imagine she'd be pretty fast at a mile. They also have the 5 Kasalu, who ran and on the dirt last time, but was also pretty close to the lead. Was third in that race we watched with Nooney and Vodka with a twist. So she should be very quick for Baffert and Kimura. There's just others that I think are a little bit. I actually messed this up. I was 247 in this one, the Baltus runner and coming off of Great Britain. So my apologies. That's a host fail on myself, which is not something I usually do. I usually mess it up for other people. But Noah, this is a horse that we'll talk about next. But for the 7, I just think if the trip has to work out for this horse, but she does have the talent, and she ran against some very good runners last time. Sophistry came back for Sam Walensky, ended up winning with Edmund Maldonado while favored in that next race, but she came out going 5. Now Super Speed's going to try the mile this time. It's just going to be a complete trip race for her, in my opinion. If they are going fast up front, Super Speed's going to be one of them, if not the one leading the charge, and it might not be what's akin to running right now, at least from this pace scenario wise. But Noah, Fondest Dream is a horse that's coming over from Great Britain, ran at 5 1/4 furlongs, which is not something you see, at least in the States, but has been at Del Mar for a long time for Baltus, which is something I like to see. And I know you're nodding your head, so you completely agree. Has been here since July 28th. Actually, it's been more than that. It's been at Santa Rosa since June 29th, but came over and has only worked on the turf at Del Mar. Baltus has been pretty decent with foreign shippers, and I'll go ahead and show that stat right now. I mean, 2 for 28, 25% in the money, but recently he stepped up his game. Those 2 wins have come within the past year, and the Great Britain breeding should only favor her going this type of trip at Del Mar.
Yeah, if you've got any worry about maybe she prefers the soft over the firm, the connections are going to make sure she prefers the firm, because that's all they've done. That's all they've trained on.
Yeah.
Like you said, 5 1/4 furlongs is definitely not something you see very often. I'll admit I didn't watch that race, but she did win by half length. She was 11-1. Like you said, Baltus has had her over here for a while. The breeding suggests that the distance shouldn't be a problem. This is a little bit of a fuzzy just because you don't really know how good she could potentially be. But then again, Richard Baltus has been very good, especially going 2 turns on the turf with any of his horses. So I think you just have to respect one of these. And I think it's worth noting that there are a couple Euro shippers. There's one for Glatt just to her inside. I think it's worth noting that Fresu hops on this one. So that's a little bit of an indicator for me that this one might be ready to go.
I don't know why I turned it on. He takes the words out of my mouth. I agree with you. The fact that Fresu obviously Noah's first call for D'Amato, and D'Amato's got others in here. Obviously didn't ride Thought Process last time, so there's no reason to put him there, but he has others in here. I thought that was very interesting. I agree with you that Fresu hops on this one. And like I said, I like that she's been here for a long time. Patrick, obviously, Thought Process is very good, and hopefully can continue it on. Anything you want to touch on before we move on to the last race we'll talk about before we get into NFL?
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting, and I kind of thought and related this back to the hopeful on was that Monday with Chancellor McPatrick. Everybody was coming out of that race and nobody was really winning, running well. So in this spot, you look at C Runner, we're going to be able to see how Jack's Magic Girl, who Noah was high on in the previous race. I think these 2-year-olds, you kind of have to go off of that. But if the talent's there, you just that'll kind of prevail. So I think these 2 races that we covered show that.
Yeah, and obviously, and actually, last race we'll talk about, then we'll move on. Ryan brings up, he says he loves Caitlin Fever, who ran in the same race as Jack's Magic Girl last time, who we just talked about, and got absolutely ran by. But this is a much different spot, I think, than that last time. Obviously, still a maiden is going to be hard, but Peter Miller has her in here, and he says that he watched her work with on the 25th with Fondest Dream and looked incredible over the turf, 48-1 with the dogs out. So again, another kind of off the wall. She will be a price that she's only had that 45 and 50 buyer comparatively to the other like 80s that the others have run in here. So, but Raylu does hop back aboard, which is at least instilling a little bit of confidence. This horse is also cross-entered. I think that's another thing we need to bring up. This horse is cross-entered on Friday at Del Mar in the third race. So we'll see if she runs in that spot or runs in here. I'm assuming that's just a maiden special weight going 2 turns again. Obviously didn't have time to look at it too hard, but has been well liked in both of her races. And if she's working very well, as Ryan stated, definitely could be one to look forward to. I'm going 2, 4, 7, probably 12, I guess would be the fourth choice. 2, 12, 7 for Patrick and 2, 12, 4 for Noah. Guys, moving on to the last race we'll talk about, which is the Mabee Stakes, which highlights 2 very good Millies and Fairs. Fantastic, Kyle. Fantastic. Fillies and Mares going at it. But of course, guys, if you guys are enjoying the content, we have a great audience so far tonight. Obviously, stay tuned for NFL talk and for Hawthorne Racecourse with Jim Miller. But if you're enjoying the content, please go down below the video player here on YouTube and give us a like and a subscribe. We would greatly appreciate it. It's the best and easiest and freest way to help out our channel. And if you're on X, guys, watching over there, please give us a follow. We have shows every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday Monday and Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, but now Thursdays are now at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, so you guys can get your horse racing fix in before football. Guys, the race 9 is the Mabee Stakes, and or the JC Mabee, excuse me, John C. Mabee, as I'll move to the Equibase right now. And 2 very, very talented mare, 1 filly, 1 mare. The number 1, Anisette, the West Coast monster, facing off against one of the East Coast monsters in Didia. Hector Barrios jumps on Didia for Nacho Correas. Ruspoli's back aboard for Leonard Powell on Anisette, and will be a dogfight for favoritism between those 2. And funny enough is that the 2 East Coast guys are going with the East Coaster, and the West Coast bias himself, not to break character, is going with the West Coast horse and Anisette. Patrick, I'd love to have you go first, man, but apparently we're just negated because Noah's continually ticking horses against us. Noah, again, West Coast versus East Coast, Anisette versus Didia in this field.
He's not going against us. He's not just going against us. He needs to realize who else he's going against.
This is very I had very conflicting thoughts here because I don't want to upset any people that I've built a relationship with. But with that being said, Anisette's very proven. She loves Del Mar. I thought in her last race, she was impressive as always, but it didn't really look like she was a winner until late in that race. So she did overcome a little bit of adversity. This is just a good, plain old situation where you kind of got to dethrone the queen in a way. And I think it's going to be tough to try and beat her. I know she's a little slower on paper, but I know just because I've been over there from the beginning, this was a race to get one over the track for Didia. It doesn't really matter to them what happens here. They're worried about November. And I think even though Anisette's probably looking towards the future, she's maybe a little more focused on the race on Saturday than maybe the future. So if you want to try and make a knock against Didia, I guess that would maybe be the case. But yeah, this is Anisette's last race that we're watching here.
Yeah, and it is. And she's the 2 right here. She was 1 to 5 that day. She's going to run like it as she has for the last 5 of 6 races, basically. She just tips, or she's in the inside here, excuse me. Even when she has to face adversity, she still finds a way to win. I was big on I can't remember who I was big on in this race. Oh, it was what's her name? The other one with Olivia Moraldo. That was the race I was thinking of. But look, even when she needs to find a way, champions find a way. Anisette is very, very good on the West Coast. The Grade 1 Gamely was the race I was thinking of, where she just had beat Olivia Moraldo by a half length in that one. Look, again, she's won 6 of her last 8 races. Her only losses have come to Didia in the Rodeo Drive and to Ruby Nell, who got away on the lead with murder, basically, in that race at a mile, which is definitely not what's Anisette's best distance. So she's definitely the West Coast queen, especially going 2 turns on the turf. But she's beat her before, Patrick. And with the pace scenario in here, they actually have Didia on the lead, which I thought was extremely interesting. She definitely doesn't want to be on the lead, but she's done it before. She's won like that before, i.e., very close in the Pegasus Filly and Mare Turf, if that brings up any beating Ruby Nell, who she fought on the lead with. She's just very, very good. And if she's able to get an easy trip or an easy lead, it might just be over from the start.
Yeah, and she gets away from the Chad Brown contingent on the East Coast. You hit on that race that she ran last time against Anisette. I thought she ran really well in there. Listen, no knock on Anisette. Noah makes up a great point that you kind of look at this this race for Anisette as her kind of, I don't want to call Super Bowl, but kind of like the big race for her, as Didia's looking more forward into the future here. But this this sets up this sets it up for the first week in November, because if Didia does prove herself on this turf course, she could be a major player in there, all things considering. And listen, I'm fine with her going on the lead, Kyle. I don't know about you. If she's the best horse, just get to the lead and do what you got to do.
I agree. I mean, look, she's done this before. Nacho Correas did this last year too. She ran in the New York, got second to market segmentation after winning 3 in a row, then went to Santa Anita, won the Rodeo Drive as easy as can be over Anisette, getting a little bit of a jump on her, and then obviously didn't run too well in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf, but she shows up in the spot, which is doing the exact same thing again. And honestly, I think she's better than she was last year. I mean, based on numbers alone, I mean, she's running mid-90s last year. She's always consistently high 90s and even ran the 100, winning the New York at a ridiculous 9-1, which I won't even go over again. But she's just as good as can be. And if she is given the lead, I don't think Hector Barrios is necessarily going to just be like, oh, you know what? No, I've seen it. We have all seen it before, but fuller and true. But where they don't take the easy lead, just go to the lead and have her win, and have her run, have her win for fun, most likely, and then have her set up a really good Breeders' Cup race in November. Obviously going to be tough to win. Fuente over Juna is the other horse that's going to be forwardly placed. I don't think she's going to want the lead necessarily. She's never been at least on the lead in her previous races. I don't think she's that fast. Juan Hernandez jumps aboard this one, which I think is at least worth a look. But she's really good at a mile and the 16th. Won that race at Indiana we talked about on this show, where I didn't like her one bit, and then she stuffs me in a locker. Every horse but one stuffed me in a locker that day. Shout out Money Supply on the turf. But she just looks slow, and I don't think she's going to get the right trip to set up to where she can spring an upset. Royal Charter's another one that's going to come from middle for David Herrera, which, again, looks slow. Uncorked is the other wild card for me, Noah. You have her. This is the other horse we all have in there. Going to sit that stalking trip or a trip pretty similar to Anisette. And that's my problem is I don't know if she's just as good as horse like Anisette to be able to knock off an Exacta, even though I do have her in second. The only reason was that if she does get a jump on Anisette, that could be the reason why she gets in for second instead of third. But third makes more sense for this type of horse.
No, I completely agree with that, just because Anisette's very talented and has a very good closing kick. So I think the only way to really beat her is to be in front of her early. It's kind of like what we saw with Highland Falls in the Jockey Club Gold Cup, where got that aggressive ride, and boy, did it work out. So if Freysu is a little more aggressive with her, I think that's going to work out for her in the long run. There's not really much else to say with her. Last thing I'll say, if you go back to Didia, you look at her last 2 races, she was wearing the Resolute Silks in the New York and she won. And then in the Diana, she was wearing the Marybelle Silks and ran 4th. Now, I don't know if that's the deciding factor, and I haven't heard what silk she's going to be running in. But that just might make or break it.
I see black encircled white mirrored RR in the notes
okay.
right there.
Then
So
I might just have to switch my picks then.
this is a Crown's Way special, honestly, because I say the same shit about when we go where obviously John with MBS Stable, fantastic guy. When he wears the orange NBS silks, we always say, oh, well, chalk it up. And then when he wears the green and black blocks, we're like, oh, chalk him in. We're in the biz. But either way, all jokes aside, it's going to be a great matchup between the two of them, Anisette and Didia. Obviously, Didia looking to things ahead. And if Anisette wins, pretty going away, I don't see why she wouldn't think about bigger things ahead as well. Didn't end up going last year, ended up running in the Autumn Miss, which I believe was the Sunday after Breeders' Cup, if I remember correctly. I think it was November 3rd and 4th last year, and she ran it on November 5th, which I think was that Sunday. Obviously, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but ended up bypassing last year, probably because she lost the Rodeo Drive to Didia. If she beats Didia here, who knows what's next for these very talented fillies and mares. I'm going 6-4-1. Pat's going 6-1-4. Noah's going 1-6-4. Guys, let's go. And that'll actually, sorry, excuse me. It's so habit. But either way, guys, we obviously, since we looked really quick at these races, we don't have best bets for you guys. Noah talked about, though. I'll let you kind of sum up your thinking, Noah, from betting standpoint. As I know you said 4 very big words earlier for a horse that's going to be a pretty high amount of odds. And I'll bring up Matt's picks here. Matt's comment here, and he said, of the meat. So obviously that horse is a very big play for you, Noah. Just kind of as very early thinking, what are you going to play doubles or just play a straight win? How are you going to play around a horse that's going to be pretty decent odds in a race where you feel so strongly?
Yeah, I'll definitely play her to win just because I know she's not going to get bet on the board.
Yeah.
Especially with Noonie, Vodka with the twist is going to get some play. Patrick's Tenma is probably going to take some money as well. Maybe even the second time starter on the rail. If people think she could get on the lead and wire them. So yeah, I'd probably play her to win just because I know I'm going to get some pretty decent odds. And then what I would probably do is I'll start a double with her, and then I'll probably just go 212 in the Juvenile Fillies turf. That's thought process. Who's second time on the turf for D'Amato, who I think we all had on top. And then the 12, even though the post is not ideal, I think she's definitely one to look out for just because of the breeding and how she finished late. I think she could definitely improve. So I'd probably just go with those two and pray. And that's probably how I would structure. I'd probably use more if I were playing the early pick 5. I'd probably use more than just Jack's Magic Girl in the debutante. And then I haven't been able to look at those first 3 races, obviously. Right. But then I would try and get myself within a decent budget to where if I use a couple in the debutante, and then I'll probably only use 2 or at least 2 on the A line in the final leg, then I can use that to kind of formulate some kind of budget in that regard.
Yeah, and obviously, since this horse is going to be decent odds, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm clicking so many things. You might have said it. With a horse that's going to be, probably high singles, if not double digits, in that race, are you thinking about not only playing her to win, but also backing up, like not backing up necessarily, but, tries or exactas with her underneath? Because even though it might get her, it's going to return at least enough value probably to warrant that if you are looking there as well. Just, obviously talking through it, because a lot of the things we do on the show are handicapping related. But when you have such a strong opinion, obviously, if you structure these bets well, you'll create more value for yourself in the short run, of course.
Yeah. I probably wouldn't play tries just because it's such a short field, but I probably will play exactas. I'd probably just go Noonie and Vodka with the twist, just because after those two, I mean, they're 2-year-old fillies. Anything can really happen. I think it's hard to separate the rest of them. So I just, in terms of betting the race vertically, I'd bet Jack's Magic Girl to win, and then I'd probably play her in second with Noonie and Vodka with a twist on top.
Yeah, love it. Like I said, a lot of, we do a lot of handicapping on this show. The betting kind of gets put a little bit by the wayside. We do best bets, of course, but um, it's very interesting when you have such a strong opinion that's pretty high odds. There's many ways you can go and able to create value for yourself. Obviously, Matt Miller, the king of stuff like that, although maybe not with high odds, like as he's more like me from a betting perspective. That's probably due to something, maybe a little bit of a crash course teaching session. But either way, we'll move into NFL, guys. Thank you guys all so much for joining the show. Greatly appreciate it. The way we're going to approach this, guys, before Jim comes on in about 10 to 12 minutes is obviously, as you can see, repping my team, repping the Bears, hopefully have a good season. The man himself is repping that polo of the New York Giants. Noah being from the southern, oh my gosh, the southwest of California, is an LA Rams fan. So we're going to take a look.
Memo.
I know. Apparently not. I don't know what's going on. But either way, we're going to take a look at our favorite teams first. We're going to kind of talk about, what we're excited for the upcoming season. We're going to take a look at lines through our good friends at BetUS. Haven't talked about them in a while, but we do use them for football. And I'll show a couple things of why I like BetUS a lot. Of course, the link is in the description. You can use code RACING3H to deposit money, and you'll get a bonus when depositing. But BetUS, guys, as I'll bring on the screen right now, you can click through so many things, and you can click, and they have all the player stats, who's going to lead in defensive interceptions, receiving yards, coach of the year, most interceptions, rushing touchdowns, as I mentioned, all of these NFL specials. You can click through them at your own. But if you click a bunch of them, you can get exactly what you want. And this is what I was talking about here. So I clicked the Bears, the Rams, and the Giants for season wins and their divisions, and who's going to win the Super Bowl odds. So I'll make this guy a little bit bigger for you guys. I'll talk about the Bears first, guys. And I'm obviously, the hopium is high in Chicago, as they say. I'm very excited for this season, and Hard Knocks only made it worse for me. But obviously, a lot of the times when you get these number one draft picks, these quarterbacks that look very good in college, they don't get put with a very good team initially, i.e., I was about to say Trevor McCarthy. My mind is
Trevor
so horse
Lawrence
racing right now. It's crazy. Thank you. Trevor Lawrence with the Jacksonville Jaguars not getting put into the best situation. But this Bears team has probably the best situation for a number one draft pick in many years. With Roma Dunze also getting drafted, which still can't believe we got him at 9. Bears bringing in Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, still the captain of that receiving core and wide receiver 1. The only thing that hasn't gotten better is that O-line, which I'll talk about in a second. But that defense is still super strong. Jalen Johnson getting re-signed. Jaquan Brisker on the other side. The DN Montez Sweat obviously getting signed last year as well. All the pieces are in place for Caleb Williams to do well, which is, I don't think Justin Fields is as good as Caleb Williams is. We had that debate for so many shows on here while we were leading up to the NFL draft on what the Bears were going to do, because it's an obvious big decision. I don't think Justin Fields was as talented as Caleb Williams is here. And like I said, he has all the makings of, this is the time to shine, and this is the best situation for him to do so. So the Bears right now, I'll scroll down to their the regular season wins. It's at 8.5 right now. So BetUS has 8.5. They're actually favored on the over of 8.5 to -165. I don't think that's a bad price. I think they have an alternate line up here as well for the Bears if they win over 10.5, which I think would be an absolutely stellar season if they win over 10 games. They have only a +200. Look, 10 and you got to obviously remember that it's 17 games, not 16 now for the NFL. So 10-7, I think 10-7 is realistic. 11-6 would be a great year for the Bears. Obviously, going against the Lions, the Packers are pretty strong as well. If JJ McCarthy was healthy, my hot take was going to be that the Packers are going to finish last in the division this year. Obviously, I don't think that's going to happen now. I feel like Sam Darnold is going to pilot the Vikings, right, most likely into like a 5-12 or 6-11 season, but not much you can do there. Obviously, they're still talented everywhere else, but I think, Pat, 10-7 would be pretty good for the Bears. I think that's a good season, obviously, after what they've gone through the last 2 years. Look, Bears fans are probably one of the most passionate fan bases. They're really looking forward to this. Obviously, I am as well. For all the reasons I mentioned, I think 10-7 is a very likely scenario. Even 9-8 would still be a pretty decent outcome, I think.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, the hype is real around them and it's good. I would love to know kind of what the line has been set at for a first overall pick quarterback and what the team's number win total was, because this seems pretty high and a lot of people are believing in them. The only thing I would say is if you think the Bears, might not do too well, bet Matt Eberflus to be the first coach fired at plus 1,200 or something like that. You could hedge it a little bit because all the pressure's on that guy.
Yeah, it is true.
And listen, I know you could say that quite often about a lot of teams with the coach. I get it and all that, but the way this team's played over the last couple of years and now what they have and how quickly they've turned this thing around, credit Ryan Poles and that staff. Yep. It's been great. I am expecting them to have a big year, but that NFC North is tough. Like, it's funny, Kyle, you said that you might predict the Packers to finish last in that division. You could debate they have the best quarterback in the division at this point. So it's like one of those things where it's like, give it, take it. And that's great. So it's going to be an awesome year. NFC North is going to be so exciting. If they do finish above 500, I think you guys should be ecstatic.
Yeah. But also funny, before you go into the Giants real quick, out of the 51-man roster on the Bears right now, since Ryan Poles came in, 2 years ago, 46 of 51 players are brand new to that organization under Ryan Poles. Only 5 players have been withstanding of that regime. So I think, like you said, I think he's done everything right. It's just a matter of, can this team perform?
Yeah, for sure.
And the Lions, plus 325, plus 215 to the Lions, plus 125, I think. Plus 125 on the Lions to win the division is it's kind of scary almost, but that seems like juice to me.
Yeah, people love the Lions. They think that they are a team to beat, which, I mean, you look at last year, you can understand why. Going into the Giants, listen, their win total, and I know Kyle's going to pull it up, is set at 6.5, and to be honest, you're getting plus money there. I do think last year was just a complete disaster with injuries and things like that. Yeah. So you kind of have to toss that out the window. You lose your starting quarterback, whether you like him or not, and Daniel Jones, who I hate to say it, I am a believer in him. I think they've built everything around him, upgraded the offensive line, have the receivers now, all young receivers. I think their offense will be good. I don't think they'll miss much in the backfield, where the elephant in the room is with that. And then on defense, that's going to be the problem. They upgraded defensive line with Brian Burns coming from Carolina. Secondaries might be the weak part, and that's going to be the trouble because you look at the division and you look who you have to face receiver-wise. What is it? 6 times. Between CeeDee Lamb, both Brown and Smith in Philly, and then Washington, who's started to upgrade their offense. That it's going to be tough for them. I do expect them. I do think they'll win more than 6 games because they are a better team and have a better roster. And I could say, we could say the same with the Giants front office overhauling that entire roster. I mean, it's insanely crazy how young they are. So, I think the Giants will be a fun team. Do I think they make the playoffs? No. But I think they'll be right around the 500 mark.
And again, I think that's especially off the last seasons. I agree with you on the injury point. I mean, they just got destroyed like early in the year. They've added Malik Neighbors, of course, who should bolster that offense and at least give Daniel Jones a target to throw to rather than the hospital legend in Sterling Shepard and others on that receiving core. But should be, like I said, you're getting plus money on over 6.5. So that's at least something. You get a little bit of juice going over. But the Rams are actually at 8.5 as well. So they're sitting right around that 500 mark, Noah. Last thing we'll talk about. And then, of course, if Pat, you want to talk on any games for this week that you're a little bit interested in, as we are starting a football pool this week. So I would, of course, love to hear your ideas. The Rams are sitting at the same line as the Bears, which I think is a little bit not disrespectful, but they have Cooper Kupp coming back. Obviously, Puka Nacua was a very good. The defense is the problem. Obviously, Aaron Donald, the big elephant in the room there, but 8.5, you're getting minus money. It's basically the same exact line as the Bears. So with a more established team, over 8.5 might be a little bit more enticing than maybe a wild card team like the Bears.
Yeah, I know their defense is they were really young last year, so hopefully you can see some maturity. I know the defensive coordinator who the name's blanking me, but he got a hit. Yeah, Raheem Mostert. He got
Morris.
Morris. Sorry, yeah, it's late here.
Yeah.
But he got a head coaching job. So filling that position, maybe you can give him the benefit of the doubt. The continued problem with the Rams over the last couple of years is their O-lines have been very sketchy in terms of health. So at the beginning of the year, they always kind of come out firing, and they're really good at running the ball and doing the things that Sean McVay likes to do. And then when they get to the last third of the season, it just seems like they kind of get banged up a little bit. And it's hard to have that when you're trying to kind of build team chemistry and mojo going into the playoffs. And they had a really tough game against the Lions I believe that was a wild card last year, which was arguably one of the better playoff games that we saw last year. And they were button heads, and unfortunately the Lions were just the better team. But I think you have to respect Sean McVay, and they've got a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. So definitely a team to look at. Maybe a sneaky one to win the division.
Yeah, and I mean, look, 8.5 wins, like I said, might be a little bit disrespectful. Obviously, getting Cooper Kupp back, as I said. I think, obviously, with Kyron Williams coming back now after he got injured early in the year, and drafting Michigan legend Blake Corum with all-time rushing leader, the rushing attack is going to be, I think it's going to be very interesting to see how they balance that. Obviously, I think Kyron Williams will be number one back, but I think they'll use Corum in he's a very good power back. I think they're going to use him goal line, red zone, that type of stuff for Corum. But the Rams are a team also that maybe you can argue they maybe didn't get better, but they definitely didn't get that much worse. So over 8.5 for them is definitely something to keep in mind as well. Super Bowl odds right here, guys. And then real quick, we'll talk about week 1 with Pat, and then we will go into, of course, Hawthorne Racecourse, who do not go anywhere. They have, of course, the Chiefs. Well, I don't know why this is messed up like that, but the Chiefs are plus 500. They probably opened up that way, and now the Chiefs are now plus 500 on BetUS, plus 650 for the 49ers. Then everyone else is double digits. Lions at plus 1,200 are probably taking the most action. As you can see, probably this is by opening. The Detroit Lions were 6th worst on the opening line, and now they're 4th choice to win the Super Bowl over the Bills and the Bengals. And obviously the Green Bay Packers and the Houston Texans are all the way down to plus 1,400, opening up in the middle of the pack. So there's a lot of really good value, of course, as there always is in these Super Bowl pools, but Bears are plus 3,500. It's probably right. Probably, if not higher, where they need to be, at least for me to take them on something like that. That'd be an absolutely insane turnaround by Ryan Poles and that whole team. The Giants are plus 20,000, probably also where they deserve to be for the Super Bowl, and the Rams are plus 3,000. So all of our favorite teams are in that bracket where we would be delighted to see a great season, probably not a Super Bowl winning one. Pat, that first Thursday game, man, what a barn burner that is between Baltimore and Kansas City. And then all the way, you got Brazil between Packers and Eagles on Friday night, and then going to Sunday. Any games you're looking forward to, at least from a betting standpoint, coming up as we end off the show, and then we talk with Jim Miller?
Yeah, I mean, there's one game of interest for me. It's Colts Texans. But the one thing I did want to say is any survivor pools that you're in, this is a tough opening week, because it's not like you have 3, 4, 5 games where you can kind of pick and choose a heavy favorite. You only got like one or two of those. And if one of those teams loses, you could see half the pool go bye-bye. But I do like Indianapolis getting the points this week. I'm a big fan of Shane Steichen and what he's done with them. And I think getting Anthony Richardson back, they played Houston tough last year. I know Houston, they started 0-2, and then they just went on a roll. And that team should only get better. I get it, but the Houston defense is not very good, and I think the running attack that Indy has and the way they play, I think the Colts, at home, divisional game, opening week, this is a big game for them. They want to show who's kind of showing up now, because obviously with CJ Stroud being so young and what they've built so quick, I think getting a head start would be great for them. So I'm going to take the Colts at home plus the points.
Yeah, and obviously getting at home, getting Anthony Richardson back, who for the very short time that we saw him last year showed he was as explosive as he was showing in college. You're getting over under 48.5, which is obviously 24-24, 27-21, that type of angle on that. I think over is probably also a very likely scenario. Both teams don't necessarily have the best. The Texans have bolstered. I don't think they have the best defense, though, going into this year. Obviously, the Colts defense has never been exactly their biggest strong suit, even going back farther to, obviously early 2000s. But plus the points is definitely, I think, very interesting on a team that is more of a wild card. I think a lot of people are very high on the Texans, and rightfully so. But this could be one that might get a little bit overbet come Sunday. And I think Indianapolis plus the points. I'm a hook guy, so I would probably buy the extra little bit of a 3.5, get myself a little bit extra coverage in that regard and go that way, save myself from a push, because while I go all out in horse racing in my football betting, I like to be just a little bit more conservative on that side. But guys, of course, good luck to all playing Del Mar this weekend and all playing NFL football, and good luck to your teams in week 1. And of course, go Bears. What's up, Pat?
Good luck to Michigan too. Big one against Texas.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but that'll be the true test. Obviously, I don't think they're as good as they were last year. If they get absolutely shit on, I'm probably just going to be sad and never talk about college football again for the rest of the year. But we'll see how it goes. I mean, look, that Texas team is very, very good. They absolutely mollywopped whoever.
I
they
wish this game
week.
was like 2 months. With 2 months.
Yeah,
freezing cold, make them come up north. Yeah, that would be a little bit different.
Yeah, I think it's obviously going in. Are they playing at Michigan? I actually don't even know. Are they playing at the Big House?
So. Yeah, I don't think it's a neutral site. I think it's at Michigan.
Well, I mean, obviously, it's always hard to go into. Yeah, it is at the Big House, so it's always hard to go up to Michigan and win. But I think this is a much different team than what we saw last year. Obviously, Colson Loveland. This is going to be what Davis Warren. Davis Warren's going to have to show that he can throw the ball at a very high degree. They don't have the fallback of Blake Corum. Obviously, they still have Donovan Edwards this year, although he has been a little bit banged up in terms of health. So Mullings has stepped in last week, Kalel Mullings. So hopefully he can continue this rushing attack. But Davis Warren didn't throw the ball the best last week against Fresno State and against a much better Texas team. He's going to have to show that he deserves to be the starting quarterback for your Michigan Wolverines. But either way, it'd be a great game and going to need probably all the luck we can get facing that Texas team. But of course, we'll bring on our great friend of the podcast and director of racing over at Hawthorne Racecourse. Like I said, talk about Hawthorne, so do not go anywhere. Jim Miller now to join us. Jim, how's it going, my friend?
It's going good. First week of the NFL. Come on, guys. This is what it's supposed to be about. I'm happy we're racing on Sunday afternoon because I can watch races on one TV and football on about 3 others at my desk. So it'll be a perfect afternoon.
Absolutely, my friend. And obviously, like you said, the weather gods have blessed us again, as turf will be a very viable option for us come Thursday and most likely for Sunday as well. Pat, Noah, I'll let you guys go. Thank you guys for joining the show, and great job today. Greatly appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
See you.
All right. Talk to you boys later. All right, Jim. So we'll get her going here. We're going to talk about 3 races as we normally do for our program on Wednesdays. It's going to be races 3, 7, and 9, if I'm remembering correctly, Jim. I'll put them up on the bottom of the screen right now. Race 3, 7, and 9, they're all turf races. They're all very competitive turf races as well. Starting off with my favorite races. My favorite race, as everyone knows, the turf sprint, which is fantastic. I'll go ahead and show the PPs as well, Jim, to start us off. And unlike earlier when we covered Del Mar the hour after they came out, we do have morning lines and we do have everything necessary to give at least people a very good synopsis on these races. But it starts off, like I said, 5.5 furlongs on the turf, claiming 10 event, and a pretty decent morning line favorite for Doc 7, the number 2 Orlando Mojica and Steve Manley, who you're actually going with on top. Second choice you listed as the number 1, Be My Bestie, the Illinois bred for Armando Hernandez at 7-2, and third choice being the number 5, the other Illinois bred, or the one of the other Illinois breds in this field, Jolie Ruler, Corey Orm, and for Martinez at 5-1. But like I said, you are going with the morning line favorite, Doc 7, in this one.
Yeah, and the reason I wanted to start with this race is because I think this horse could be a single for the early pick 5, could be a single for the early pick 4. A horse to just work a lot of wagers around, and it's because they're getting back to the turf. 5.5 on a firm turf, out in lane 3-2, 20 feet out. This is a horse that's kind of at its best on the grass. And really, you're looking at those races back on May the 19th, back on June the 8th. Those were 2 solid performances where the horse kind of rated in that second flight early on, went running at him in the lane. And when the rail's all the way out, you get those turns that are a little bit wider. You need to save a little bit more ground there. So from the 2 hole, I think this one just kind of tucks in behind, but some of the paces to the outside. Then you get a horse like Be My Bestie to the rail. I just think Doc 7 kind of gets that trip, rates 2-3 lengths off the pace, and then moves forwardly in the lane. And this is a much easier spot than what you saw in those last couple of starts, too. Even that handicap race was a pretty tough race. So you're back at a winning level. I think this is a horse that you just sit on, you single, and you kind of go from there.
And even talking the handicap scenario, I mean, he ran well in that race, excuse me, I'll take a drink for that one. That's fine. I'll take a drink. Cheers to everybody, as we normally do. But he ran great in the and I said he again. What am I doing? She ran great in the handicap race, even though only getting a 60 buyer. But that's not really, I don't think, where she's her best. I think she's her best on the turf, as you mentioned, and coming back to that claiming level. Last time she won going away at.
And it's just one of those things where Steve Manley, he's kind of trying to find his spots. This is a horse he's been looking for turf at Indiana, looking for turf at Hawthorne. He's stable down at Fairmount Park where they don't have a turf course. So he's taken the time and effort to bring this horse up, try to find that winning spot. And I really think they are sitting in just kind of the best possible spot. And then on top of it, you pick up Orlando Mojica in the saddle. He probably had his choice of multiple horses in that race. So you're sitting there with the best jock, a guy who fits this horse well, a guy who rode the horse to its best figure in that start 4-back 2. I just think everything revolves around Doc 7 in this race, and I really wouldn't look a whole lot further in there.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, but you do have others underneath, which I think are really interesting. And my bad, I mistouted the pick. Number 6, Bali Baby, is the horse you have second, not the number 5, Jolie Ruler. At 12-1, again, a nice price. When you're looking underneath a horse like Doc 7, who might be a pretty low price, this is a horse that might bolster up at least some of your exotics.
And it comes down really to that start 2-back. That was a good, solid effort over a good turf course. Grade1 was a very easy winner that day. And this was one of the few horses that was kind of running on underneath for place. A 62 buyer was a pretty solid number. I think you can improve off that. But I think they've kind of found that turf sprints are really where this horse is at its best. And you see, looking through the past performances, there's 3/4 on the dirt. Race that comes off, a couple of races around 2 turns. This is the spot. Luis Colon is a very aggressive rider. I think Bali Baby is just a horse that if you want to look underneath the 12-1, I think you get all of that price. And I think this is a horse that could put forth a very solid effort.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Obviously, you love that double-digit price for one of those that you think might be a little bit dirtied up and coming back to what she loves to do. I think Bali Baby makes a ton of sense, at least underneath from that standpoint. Last horse we'll talk about, Jim, is the horse you have in third, Rare Action Attack. And anytime you see these horses out of Forced Attack, you know exactly who bred them, you know exactly who owns them, you know exactly who trains them, of course, beyond when they get claimed. This is another one that's going to be flying from the back, Jim, but with a horse like Doc 7 might just not be as good as a horse like Doc 7, but one that might just catch a piece late.
Trainer Vance Childers has actually had a really good meet, considering that he gives a lot of horses a lot of chances in spots where you may think that they're a little bit overlooked. Trying horses in A other thans, trying horses in stakes. You look at that, and then all of a sudden you look to see, okay, 32 out of 92 on the board actually isn't a bad figure, because a lot of these horses are running at big prices. And look at the odds on a horse like Rare Action Attack. All the way down, it's double-digit odds. But you see a third in there, another third. You see a fourth in there. Races where the horse figures, and a lot of those races are much higher than this $10,000 level. So this is a horse too that should be in a solid position. And also Walter Rodriguez has only been in for a couple of days this meet. He kind of pops in when he thinks he has the opportunity to get on some live mounts throughout the course of the day and try to pick up some checks. And this is a spot where I think he can do so. And again, I think you're going to get that 6-1 price.
Yeah, and I thought that was really interesting too. Obviously, like you said, Walter Rodriguez only 7 starts so far this year at Hawthorne and 5 of 7 in the money. Obviously, rides a lot for Wesley Ward in these Midwest kind of connection races. But yeah, you're right. Doesn't come in very often, but when he has a live mount, he's willing to come in. And again, so Rare Action Attack might not be one to be overlooked, even though those numbers, again, for both Vance Chillers and the horse lifetime might not be the best going forward. But Jim, we'll look ahead again. Race number 7 is the feature on the entire card. It's going a mile on the turf. It's a really nice N1X, and I'll switch over to race number 7 now on the Echo base so everyone can take a look. Right, it is 8 horses with a very lukewarm favorite at the number 1, Tough Little Nut for Mohican Block. Again, not really too much else you look for when favoritism in the at Hawthorne, at least definitely this year, going long on the turf. Second choice is number 7, Iris's Dream, Walter Rodriguez again for Cheryl Weinbaugh, and third choice just to his inside, Great Coolness, David Cohen, and Louis Roussel, who you ended up going with on top of this one.
Yeah, this is an intriguing race too, because Tough Little Nut from the inside will take some action. Iris's Dream, I figure, is going to. This is a horse that ran in the Florida Derby earlier on in the year. They thought a lot of this horse early on. And then you end up with a horse like Great Coolness, who they've just kind of been waiting for to find their time, to find that turf race again. And you see, this is a horse that started out with a couple of races last year. Then it was a break. Then you came back with a couple of races. Then it was another break. But what I like is all the works have been consistent. You're basically 7 to 10 days apart for every single work. Louis Roussel's not afraid to just kind of take his time for these horses, giving them that opportunity to kind of let him know when they're ready. And I just think this horse gets the right running style here, because All Choked Up is going to show a little bit of speed near the inside. Chaos Reigns near the outside could. But the question is, they're both trained by Jimmy DeVito. Does he run both of them in there? If he only runs one, I think Great Coolness is the horse that off that last effort tucks in right behind the pace, gets to jump on some of those late closers. And that was kind of my one concern when handicapping this race, is what was the pace scenario going to be? I thought this is the one that could be rating closest to the early pace and then running on to late at a little bit of a price.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it hasn't been, obviously has been off since January, just looking for Roussel to get to the right spot. But horses coming out of that race, I mean, Moment of Stardom was a winner earlier in the year, of course. Me Solution was a winner coming out of that race. And obviously, you see state bred 12s and you're like, is that really the best type of spot when coming into this race, especially off the layoff? But a lot of winners coming out of those races. First time gelding. It's a complete new look for this horse almost, Jim. Now coming into his 4-year-old year, because really that January 13th starts more of a 3-year-old year, end of 3-year-old year start. Now the start to 4 years old, where he could theoretically take a step forward as well.
Well, and that's the thing about it. You're gelded coming into this race. You're coming off the layoff. Roussel's good off the layoff as well. And I just think everything just kind of lines up for trying to find the right spot. And again, you're picking up another very good rider in David Cohen. So it's one of those, if you couldn't get Mohica, who's riding the Chris Block runner, you get David Cohen. He's a very strong finisher who's been riding the turf course very well. And I think this is a horse that, again, you just might get a little bit of a price because some of the others should take some action in there.
Well, right, exactly. And you already mentioned the other two we'll talk about, so we can go through them quick. This is another one coming off a layoff. Like you mentioned, ran in the Florida Derby, won going on the turf by 7 1/4 in a maiden option 50, then goes to the Florida Derby, which again might be as Paul says on the other show, a little bit of Derby DFS, a little Derby fever syndrome coming out of that race, and then didn't run bad in that Keeneland effort at all. I think with Nomos winning by 1 3/4, fifth, but just off by 2 3/4. Now shows up here. I think, another one that might be able to sit a little bit closer, as you mentioned, with Great Coolness.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing that I'm expecting out of this horse. And again, much like Great Coolness, it's been a nice, consistent workout pattern here over the last 4 drills. The one thing I did worry about a little bit, though, is you get the work on April 21st, followed by that Keeneland race, which was a bang-up race. Then you're off the work tab all the way till August 11th. So now 4 drills towards the return. And my only question is, are they going to need a start coming back? Or if this is a horse that's going to be ready right off the bench? But it's connections where you know they're going to take a good amount of action in there. And that was my one concern for not putting Iris's Dream on top.
I completely agree with you. I think that, especially being off for that long, coming into 4 drills, I completely agree with you. The fact that, maybe he does just need one going into, maybe something a little bit down the line, maybe Keeneland in a month, something like that. Right. Tough Little Nuts, a horse, as you said, you mentioned before, morning line favorite, probably will take the most money, has been running in very tough spots at Keeneland, ran in that Hawthorne race, didn't run bad, just, losing by 3 1/4. Was not even favorited in that race, which I think might be showing how tough that race might have been. Now coming into this spot, second off a little bit, still off a little bit of a layoff, but not as long as these other 2 we've mentioned.
Yeah, and the thing about Tough Little Nut, this was a horse that was only a nose ahead of Iris's Dream in that Keeneland race back on April the 26th. So they were both in that same spot. And then you got the 1 start off of that race, which was a pretty good effort. Block always takes action, especially on the turf, especially in Illinois, especially at Hawthorne. This is the horse that will go favored in there. The numbers have been consistent and they've been improving. But again, this is a horse where you're kind of looking at, okay, that June 16th race. And then after that, 3 drills towards the return. And I'll just be curious to see for a horse that's going to take a lot of action if they're going to run to it, or if this is a horse that, again, need maybe 1 start. But you kind of have those questions about all 3 of those selections in there. It's just a matter of looking at what you can look for value-wise.
Yeah, absolutely. And this the other thing to mention, Jim, also is that, May 18th drill, right? And then comes like June 8th, which is almost a month later, and then does it again, comes back July a month later, and then does it again, which is on August 18th, and then drills at the 25th a week later. So it's a very weird work pattern, especially for Chris Block, who's generally a very consistent, working his horses.
He's about every 7 days. Yeah. So that's one of the things that you definitely have to look to for a horse like this. And being a 3-year-old, you're coming in off the layoff. The horse ran okay, fresh off the layoff, 3 starts back. But I'm just curious to see, because I don't think you're going to get the value on the horse. I do think Tough Little Nut takes a whole lot of action there in the 7th.
I agree with you completely, and that's, I think, why you're looking more towards the 6 and the 7 to create a little bit of value for that one. Jim, last race we'll talk about is race number 9, which is a maiden 20,000, going a mile on the 16th on the turf, and I'll show, of course, the Equibase right now, who you laid to the morning line and morning line favorite, and that's the number 5 in this race. Sharp Strike, a Kentucky bred for David Cohen. Louis Russell at 5-2. Second choice out to the outside, number 8, I.O. Fedro for Franklin Reyes and Chris Block at 7-2. Third choice to the inside for the number 2, Wolf Hunter for Manny Perez at 9-2. You are going with with your fourth choice, which you laid, the number 7, Ricky's Best. Again, Mojica taking up the mount.
This is a horse that's been waiting and waiting and waiting to get on the turf. Anthony Mitchell only has a handful of horses, so when the races have been getting rained off, they've stayed in spots just to get races under the belt for this horse, and you're still seeing gradual improvement each and every time out. But here's the thing, Ricky's Best is going to be much better on the turf, bred to run on the turf. This is a horse that had worked well. They were very high on this horse going into that debut, and now you come into the spot, and all of a sudden Orlando Mojica opens up as well too in the saddle. So everything, I think, lines up for Ricky's Best to put forth a very good performance in here. The fact that you're fit off those dirt races is beneficial coming into this spot. They're not asking too much in here. Still in for the maiden 20. You'll get the 5-1, but this is a horse they've been trying so hard to get on the grass. Now they're finally going to get the weather to cooperate for them, and I think Ricky's Best runs a big, big race in here.
Yeah, and obviously this is one that, might be a little dirtied up. No pun intended, with all the dirt the dirt that this horse has run, when all he's been trying to do is get this horse on the turf. So Ricky's Best 5-1 is definitely Anthony Mitchell, as you mentioned, a smaller barn, only 0 for 9 this year as we're through September now, but one that might take to the turf completely. So I definitely agree, and a lot of value to be had there with a horse like the number 7, Ricky's Best. Number 5, Sharp Strike, is the morning line favorite, who you laid and who you have in second in this one. This is one that has proven it. Now this is the drop I think this horse might need. And with the trip envisioned, this horse might just be a little bit classier than a lot of these others.
Yeah, and the thing about it with Sharp Strike, it might just be the class is the reason that people bet this horse. The numbers have been fine. The races haven't been great by any means. I mean, even you look at the start 2 back, you ran 6 beating 4 lengths. Wolf Hunter, who's in this very same race, came out of that race there And I still think Sharp Strike will probably take a little bit more action because people are going to look at the connections. They're going to look at David Cohen, Louis Roussel, Clash Drop. Sharp Strike should be a horse that's closing late. But again, I think it's a vulnerable favorite, a horse that you might be able to beat in this spot.
Yeah. And, this is a horse we always talk about, right? The slow starter, flying from the back and just never seems to get the job done.
Right.
So, and if the horse takes a lot of money, this is definitely a horse that you can look for beating.
Yeah, and the thing is, you need the right trip. You need a kind of a dream trip in the spot. And the one thing that this race is kind of lacking is early pace. There's not a whole lot of it that's going to be on. So you're going to have to sit a little bit closer and really work out a trip. And I just don't know if it's going to happen, or if you want to take the shot for it to happen for a horse that could be the likely favorite.
Yep. And I agree with you completely. The number 2 Wolf Hunter is the horse you have in third. And this is always what I always love to call it. I love Manny Perez, but this is the quintessential Manny Perez horse. It's the 0 for 25s, but a lot of seconds, a lot of thirds, just a lot of, horses that run very well in a lot of spots, just don't seem to really get the job done.
The thing about it, if you look, so many of the races, the number would be good enough to win in this spot. But again, then you see 0 for 25 and you're like, can I really play this horse in the win column? And it's very tough to do so. It's a great horse to play underneath. I mean, 11 times second or third. And that's just kind of the way Wolf Hunter runs. He kind of sits mid-pack. He runs enough to get into the mixed slate. He's a pack horse. He wants to run with the pack. He doesn't want to run by the final horses. And again, I think he'll get a decent trip. They are taking the weight off again with Rashawn Blanche in the saddle. Blanche has ridden the horse well in the past. So it wouldn't shock me if the horse gets in the mix. Just you can't endorse a horse like that on top.
Yeah. And we always say that. I always joke that every single time is with the Jones way, the 12 for 21 in our stable, who ended up going 0 for 21 and then winning 4 of her last 7 races, which, sometimes it just seems these pack horses just come out of nowhere. But you're right. Especially, middling price over 25 is definitely a hard one to back, at least from a value standpoint.
And it is. And you kind of wait. You talk about the light bulb angle. Once one of those horses finally does win and they figure it out, then they usually do string together nice races and usually string together victories. But it's so hard to put a horse like that on top unless you're thinking this horse is going to be 20 to 1, which is not going to be. You can't do it.
Yeah. And, we always say, you pick that horse on top and then you win, you look like a genius. You lose, you look like an idiot.
Right,
Basically
exactly.
What it comes down to. One thing I want to mention, Jim, before we get off the show. Matt Miller says, hey, Jim, looking at my contest brochure for Thanksgiving weekend, we'll do as much as family plans allow me to. And Jim Pilar says, I'm on the Hawthorne mailing list and they truly have the best contests in the country. Makes me wish I had easier access to the Chicago area. Obviously, we're still a little bit ways away from the next Hawthorne contest. But leading up to the NHC season, there's no place to that's better than Hawthorne.
Well, the cool thing about it, like Jim mentions, I mean, we try to make it as easily accessible as possible because we do offer these contests at a lot of our OTB locations. We have one OTB that is within 15 minutes of Midway Airport. We have another OTB that's within about 15 minutes of O'Hare Airport. And those are contest locations. So if people do want to come in for these weekends, want to come in, get a hotel nearby one of these OTB locations and play the contest, they can do so. And it does work out rather nicely. You can Uber back and forth, so you're not having to rent a car or anything. And then just go enjoy the contest. The venues are great. And the big thing about it, Kyle, is there's a lot of seats out there. We do real money contests. It's no entry fee. You keep what you make, so you can have a big weekend and you can keep your money if you win the contest. But even if you have a big weekend and maybe you finish third or fourth and you don't get that NHC seat, you can still keep all that money you made. So it's not one of those when you're throwing in playing mythical wagers and have a big day and you really don't have a whole lot to show for it. You get to keep that bankroll. So that's one of the big benefits of our contests.
Yeah, that's always what I preach, Jim, is especially when you're staying by night, in these airport hotels where you can Uber back from when you're real close, they don't cost a whole lot of money. And the other thing is that Hawthorne OTBs, everyone thinks OTB and they think, a bunch of guys just sitting in a circle at tables, not talking, doing anything. These are great. They're honestly very nice venues. Very good food. Crazy Pour is one that comes to mind. Obviously, Oakbrook Terrace, where you do a lot of your, Hawthorne shows and stuff like that. They're really good venues. So if you do want to come and you've ever thought about playing a Hawthorne contest, we of course, none as unbiased as I can say it, would highly recommend it.
Well, and the thing about it too, which is really good, is we have partnerships with Fanatic Sportsbooks. So 3 of our OTB locations that are contest locations also have sportsbooks there. So if you want to play NCAA football on Saturday, if you want to play NFL football on Sunday, you can do so, and you hit it all. It's kind of one-stop shop in there, and they're joint ventures. So we team up with restaurants, bars, setups where you can get great food, great drink, have a great venue, and everything works out really nicely.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I said, couldn't agree with you more. Hopefully, like I said, I'm kind of in Matt's boat. We'll see what family allows me to do. But of course, as we get nearer to the NHC with the last chance, another good thing that Hawthorne does will definitely be around. So hopefully I can see a bunch of you guys out there. Jim, thanks again for joining the show, man. Greatly appreciate it. Of course, good luck with Hawthorne this Thursday and Sunday, of course. And hopefully go Bears this weekend. That's the biggest hope.
And if you're playing the Bears, and if you like the Bears this year, and you really want to find ways to play them, maybe you play Matt Eberflus for Coach of the Year if you think the Bears are going to be good, instead of a little bit lesser odds on division or anything along those lines, or a win total. Go something along those that route where you get a season-long wager. Then one of my favorite wagers, Kyle, is worst record in the NFL, and I actually hit it on the Bears a couple of years ago.
You did.
Go the opposite route in the same division as the Bears. Maybe play the Vikings for worst record in the NFL. You're getting about 30-1 odds right now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, Sam Darnold's been Sam Darnold. He hasn't really had a chance to shine. This will be his real chance because he actually has people to throw to that aren't Walmart workers. But obviously, no disrespect, but you know what I'm saying. We'll see what he's made of. But yeah, 30-1. I mean, that's definitely at least worth a look. But yeah, I'm hoping for just a good season. But Coach of the Year can definitely be something to look forward to. But Jim, again, thanks again for joining the show. Greatly appreciate it. And thank you to everyone out there for joining the show and watching not only Del Mar Debutante Saturday, NFL Week 1, but also Hawthorne on Thursday, September 5th. For the Director of Racing at Hawthorne Racecourse, Jim Miller, who good luck with your fantasy team as well, Jim, by the way. For my co-host today, Patrick Kunsel and Noah Maher, this has been your host, Kyle Roscoe, in episode 98 of Bettin N Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. And until next week, everybody, crush those bets, win those photos, and stay safe, everyone. We'll see you in the next one. Have a good night.